If you have been thinking of starting an ambitious creative project, but you get overwhelmed before you even get started, this episode is the one for you. Most people think that they have to know everything before they can get started. But overthinking is only going to lead to overwhelm and analysis paralysis, leaving us frozen and never taking action. This is why in today's episode, I'm sharing my own experience building this podcast for the last 12 months, lessons learned, and why getting started before you're ready is the best way to build momentum and grow creatively. Hi, I'm Renata McElvany, a creativity coach for neurodivergent and multi-passionate women of color with over 10 years of experience in the creative industry and a lifetime creating for self-care. And in this show, we talk about creativity not just as a hobby, but as a tool for self-discovery, healing, joy, and everything in between. So get cozy, grab your favorite drink, and let's dive in. First of all, welcome and thank you so much for tuning in to Heal and Grow with Creativity, the video podcast that you are watching or listening to right now by yours truly, Renata. And I can't believe we're here. This show is turning one today, and I can't believe I've been doing this for the last 12 months. And I'm really trying to let that sink in because it's a big accomplishment for me. This is a very special episode, of course, because not only are we turning one, but I also want to use this as an opportunity to go behind the scenes, take off my coaching hat, and talk to you like a friend and share the real scoop, the messy, imperfect, and sometimes challenging journey that it's been running this show. Because here's the thing, I think that by now, most of us are used to only seeing people's wins and highlights, but less of the imperfect starts, the messy journey, the baby steps, the self doubt, the wanting to quit every other day. My hope for this episode is to one, celebrate this milestone out loud, but two, is to also show you what it actually looks like to start before you're ready and why this matters so much for creative growth. So let's go back to summer 2024 when I was thinking about starting this podcast. I had been wanting to start a podcast for several years already at that point, and I had even attempted to start a podcast with other people, which didn't really work out. And I took that to be a sign to start my own show for myself. And that's exactly what I did. In the beginning, I wasn't exactly sure how I wanted this podcast to look like because I hadn't figured it all out yet. But what I do remember was thinking, I want to talk about creativity, personal growth, and living a creative life. I had about 2 to 3 episodes in mind, but that was it. But I also knew that I wanted to create something that I couldn't seem to find anywhere else. And that was to create a space for women like me, women of color, neurodivergent, and multi-passionate to come together for us to nourish our creativity and to feel less alone. So I told myself, just start. And this is literally the spark that kickstarted this whole thing. Of course, that initial spark that kickstarted this whole process was the easy part because once I actually got to the beginning, things started to get more messy and a little more challenging, and I actually had to persevere. So for those first few episodes, I was leaning heavily on structure and following a script because I just didn't have a process. I didn't know what it took to produce a show. And I also remember thinking that it was really awkward to talk to the camera because it's not a natural process and it's something that you have to learn to do as you do it. So that took some time. And I also remember that at that time, I had some really loud neighbors. I live in a 2-story apartment, and the neighbors upstairs were making so much noise. And I was thinking to myself, how am I going to do this? Can I really do this? Because I cannot seem to find a time where it's quiet. And I also had to figure out the schedule with my partner to establish a time where I could actually record without getting disturbed. So there was a lot of logistical things that had to happen for this show to come to life. And behind the scenes, I still had to manage my life and take care of other responsibilities and make time for rest and just being a human being. But what surprised me the most is that even though I was going through all these challenges, I was also starting to feel really proud of myself. And I even started talking about this show with my friends, with colleagues at work, and just feeling generally proud and being able to say, yeah, I created this. This is my thing. Looking back, I realized that if someone had told me how much work goes into producing this podcast, I may have never gotten started. But I didn't know better. I just dove in, and that was a blessing. And I think that the lesson from this season is realizing that you don't build confidence by thinking about it, you build it by doing. Now, let's zoom out. And after a full year, what have I actually learned? I could talk about a bunch of different things, but I'm going to stick to the three top lessons that I've learned along the way. Lesson one is that consistency looks different than you think. This is by far one of my most consistent projects, and it's not because I was hard on myself or super rigid, but because I made a public commitment to keep showing up weekly. I treated my podcast not like it was a chore and something to check off my to-do list, but as an extension of my creative practice. And that made it fun and enjoyable and something that I look forward to doing every week. And there were weeks when I felt overwhelmed and I couldn't keep up with the pace that I was going at. And this is when I made the choice that instead of quitting, I would scale back. And this is the moment that I realized that I had made a really powerful choice, that instead of quitting, I was going to keep going. And I was choosing sustainability over burnout. Lesson two is that clarity comes from action. Like I talked about earlier, I didn't know what the show was going to look like. In the beginning, I was thinking maybe I could do book reviews, or maybe I could interview famous people, or maybe I could just talk about goal setting as creatives. And I tried a few of these things, but the way that I actually found my own unique voice was by doing my own show my way. And each episode gave me clarity on my message, on my audience, on the way that I wanted to show up. And I realized that the confidence that I was looking for is something that I gained after taking action, not before. Lesson three is that good enough beats perfect every single time. At first, I was re-recording episodes multiple times, and what I quickly realized is that the first and second takes tend to be the ones that are most fresh, the most authentic, the most energized. And by the third and fourth attempts, I was starting to feel really flat. This podcast has forced me to confront my perfectionism and to let it go. And it's still a work in progress, and I think it's going to be a work in progress for a while. But I love that this is a vehicle that I can use to let that go. And I've also learned that good enough is powerful because it allows you to let go of doing endless loops and getting caught up in trying to make everything flawless and just moving on and shipping. And the more that we do that, the better we get, as we know. Even with the year under my belt, I am still growing, I'm still learning. And one of the things that I'm going to continue to do is embracing incremental growth. And what I mean is that instead of trying to do all the things, do them perfectly, I am doing one thing at a time. And I really encourage you to do the same thing. So for example, with YouTube, with podcasting, I wasn't really great at thumbnails at first, and I was just doing something simple. And as I've gone on, I've tried to improve that. I've tried to see how to do it better. And next, I want to learn how to do hooks better and things like that. You can break it down into really small, tiny things that you can get better at and do it incrementally instead of overwhelming yourself trying to be a master at podcasting or whatever project you're trying to do from the get-go. The other thing I'm doing is I'm continuing to focus on my impact, not just my metrics, because as we know, the online world forces you to have to look at likes and follows, and that's great. And I think there's a place for that. But I also think it's important to be able to have time to enjoy the actual impact that you're having on people. And this is why I love when you guys give me feedback, when I get messages, when I get DMs, because there's nothing that beats having conversations with another human being. And that's something that I really appreciate. And this actually reminds me of a really inspiring post that I saw by Amy McNee, who goes by Inspired to Write on Instagram, who talked about not deleting work that gets 0 likes and 0 views or whatever. And I really loved it because of what she said afterwards, which I noted here. Keeping it up is a radical refusal to measure your worth by external validation. And this is exactly how I feel. And I continue to practice this regularly. Whenever I see that a video is not getting views, it's really tempting to want to put it away, to delete it, to do something except having to feel the uncomfortableness of it all when you see that your work is not getting the views that you want. But instead, I remind myself that this project is more than just getting views, it's more than subscriber counts, and it's all about my growth as a person and being able to express myself and hopefully reach people who feel like me and who understand what I'm talking about. And when I look at it from that perspective, things really come into perspective. Sorry to be so redundant, but yeah, you start to see things in perspective and you realize, like, wow, what I'm doing here is more than just numbers. So remembering that often is what helps me to keep moving forward. And I think it's going to help you too. And this is a living and breathing project, and it's allowed to grow and evolve like I grow and evolve as a person. I don't need to have it all figured out, and you don't need to have it all figured out either. That's the good news. So let's bring it back to you. I hope that what you take away from this episode is that you don't need to be ready before you start. You don't have to have a whole plan. You just need the courage to take that first imperfect step. Celebrate your milestones. This is literally the reason I'm doing this episode as well, as I have said, because it's so important to celebrate ourselves and to do it out loud, to do it with your community. And I think that each time that you celebrate, you're telling your body, your mind, it's okay to do this. This is fun. This is something that brings me fulfillment. And I'm sure that that is going to give you more energy to keep doing it. And remember to treat your creative project not as a chore, as a thing that you have to check off your to-do list, but as a practice, as an extension of your creative practice where you get to grow and learn and experiment and express yourself. So now my question for you is, what is one creative project that you have been dreaming about? And what would it look like to take one messy, imperfect step towards it this week? Drop it in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, or you can send me a DM on Instagram. And again, thank you so much for being a part of Heal and Grow with Creativity. I am so happy that you are a part of this really special project. Thank you for your messages, for your feedback, for the screenshots with your creative projects. Those are the messages that I'm always looking forward to. And they are the fuel that keep this project going. Like I said, that's the whole point of this show, to connect with like-minded people, to build community, to have each other's back, and to nourish our creativity together. This is why I'm so glad that I didn't wait until I was perfect and ready before starting this show. Thank you. And if you're in the LA area, I'm doing a Art in the Park in-person event on September 28th in collaboration with Creative Comadre. You can RSVP using the link in the show's description. I would love to see you there so that we can create a community. And that's it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you on the next one. Until then, stay creative. Bye.